Hello friends, my name is Happy. Today we are going to learn how to create a 3D text effect and navbar in HTML and CSS. Oh, and also Tailwind CSS and Font Awesome. So first, you have to open our browser and VS Code, and you see that I already have them opened here. So now you have to search for Font Awesome. Go to the official Font Awesome website, which is here. Wait. And then you have to sign in. Then you have to sign into your account. But that is if you have an account. If you don't have a Font Awesome account, then you have to click on sign up and get started if you don't have a Font Awesome account. And then you have to write the name of your account. And after writing the name of your account, you click on send kit code. And then you follow the steps that it shows you. But if you do have a Font Awesome account, you just have to sign into that account. Signed into your account. Now once you have signed into your account, you have to click on your kit. Now and then click on something that looks like this. Now you wait, and then you copy the kit code, or you can just copy the script. Copy. And then once you've copied the script, go to VS Code and click on open folder. Go to document, create a new folder, naming it 3D text. And then click on open. And then write index.html. Create a new file and name it index.html. Then create a new file called index.css. But well, that's what we would be doing anyways. So for this project, we're not just going to create a HTML and CSS file that like we normally do. Instead, we're going to be using Node.js to set up this project. Wait for this to get deleted. Then click on terminal and click on new terminal. And then write npm turns out npm is not working. So I have to switch to bash, which is my normal terminal. Anyways, if you're a Linux user and npm isn't working, then you have to switch to bash or your normal terminal to get it to be working again. But anyways, wait, npm init, which means initialize. Now you have to name your package. The name doesn't do anything, so you can just rename it whatever you want. But I'm just going to name it text. You have to also write the version. But as I said, it doesn't do anything. You can write whatever version you want. I'm just going to write 1.0.0. And then you can just skip the description, skip the entry point, skip this one, skip this one, skip this one. And then the author, you can either skip it or write a name. I'm just going to write a name and name it Hab. And then just skip the license. Yes. It's going to create a package.json, which is going to contain all of our node packages. If you want to install npm, just write node.js install, download node.js, and then click on these ones depending on what OS you're using. But if you're a Linux user, just write sudo apt install node.js npm, which is going to install node.js and npm together. So anyways, now write Tailwind CSS.com. And also, I forgot to tell you, before I watch this video, make sure that you have a basic knowledge of HTML and CSS. And also make sure that you have a basic knowledge of Tailwind CSS. If you don't have a basic knowledge of them, then watch my Introduction to HTML, Introduction to CSS, and Tailwind CSS videos. Now, when you write tailwindcss.com, you have to click on enter. Then after you enter your way into Tailwind CSS, you have to click on get started. Instead of admiring all the things you can do, you're just playing classes. Get started. Now, then click on framework guides, Parcel, and this is how to configure Tailwind CSS on Parcel. Okay, so now you don't have to do all this because we've already initialized our project. So I have to install Parcel. Parcel is a completely free and open source server app that allows you to create localhost servers. Now write npm install Parcel, npm install just the Parcel, enter. Then it's going to install Parcel for you. So this is going to take some time, so you have to wait. So when Parcel is installed, now we can parcel our app. So you can write make dir mkdir source. If you've never used the terminal and don't know what mkdir is, you might have used the terminal, but if you don't know what mkdir is, it's just a way of creating a folder. And now you can write touch source / index.html. If you don't know what touch is, touch just creates a file in the specified location, which is source. We could just cd into it, but that's not really necessary. I'm just using this way, it's more efficient. Now we have to install Tailwind CSS. npm I or install I for short Tailwind CSS. Now you also have to install post CSS, but you don't have to do this. You can just write. Now you can also install the insiders version, but for now, we're just going to install the normal version. Now, when Tailwind CSS has finished blowing its way into our folder, we have to write npx Tailwind CSS init. When Tailwind Tailwind CSS finished initializing, it's going to create a config.js. So, and then create a .postcssrc. You can use this by creating a new file, but I'm just going to write touch.postcssrc. Then in postcssrc write plugins Tailwind CSS. Save. And now with that's done, go into tailwind.config.js and then in the contents write. Either you can write this manually or you can just copy it and paste it. Save. Now create an index.css. And then write at tailwind base. And then write at tailwind components. And then at tailwind utilities. So don't forget to put semicolon. Now this is just going to import Tailwind CSS into our, you guessed it, CSS file. And now you have to start the server by writing npx parcel source/index.html. Now this is going to parcel our index.html file. In correct terms, this is going to put our index.html file into a server which is called localhost 1234. Localhost 1234. A new blank page. And index.html. I'm just going to copy everything here. Paste it. Save. Yeah, we've got some styles text up and running. Now, just delete everything. And then copy the kit code again to make sure that when we paste it, something else won't show up. And then paste the kit code into the head. Now what this is going to do is that it's going to insert font awesome into our HTML project. So now we have to create a div and give it a class of container because this div is going to contain some items in it. So now we have to create an I class called camera. Now there's a camera here. Now, if you're using Font Awesome Pro, then you can also write duotone, so that your camera can have two colors. But if you don't have Font Awesome Pro, then you can also write duotone. But that duotone is only for Font Awesome Pro. So we're not going to add duotone to our camera. So copy this and then paste it and rename this to fat image fat gear There we go. Now we've got a camera, an image, and a gear. But is it really interesting? So to make this more interesting, in the class container I'm going to write, first we have to make this text bigger. So write text 6XL. And also, if you're wondering why this auto completion is showing up, that is because I have Tailwind CSS tooling installed as my VS Code extension, which basically just adds auto completions for Tailwind CSS. Which is right here. This tooling isn't compulsory, it's just optional, but it definitely helps. Now also search for flex, justify, around, which is going to make all these objects to have space in between and around them. Or I guess you can say they're going to be justified to be evenly spaced. So anyways, now I'm also going to add some background color. Right, BG blue, something like 400, a nice blue background, and then write something like P8. Now you can see that the background is bigger. So go to Font Awesome and click on Docs. So you click on Icons. After you click on Icons, it is now going to take you to the Font Awesome Icons place and then search for magnifying glass width, and it's going to show a magnifying glass. I'm going to copy this code and paste it into our HTML. Now we have a magnifying glass. I'm also going to remove this container because this container is a property of Tailwind CSS. This container is a Tailwind CSS class. Anyways, when you remove the container, you'll see that when we hover over these items, nothing happens. They just stay the same usual black that they always were. So you have to search for hover, text, 8XL, and then copy this and paste it throughout all of the I tags. Now you can see, whenever you hover over them, they become bigger. So well, that's cool, but how about we add some color to them? For the magnifying glass, I am going to make it to be gray. So write text gray, like 400. 400, a grey magnifying glass, and for the image write text green 400. And for the gear write text grey 400. But anyways, for the image also write text nothing 400. Actually, just joking. For the image, just write nothing. Just make the camera to be purely black. But for the image, write text green for 600. I'm going to change these from 400 to 600 because they don't really show well. I'm going to change this magnifying glass to text white. Now it looks much more natural. And also, you can also add animations if you wanted to, like bounce, which makes it to bounce around, or spin, which makes it to spin. And you could copy these animations throughout all of the eye tags. But I'm not going to do it for this video. But you can add these animations if you want to. So anyways, now that we've done with the styling of this nav bar, it is time to make some 3D text. First, create a H1 that says welcome. Welcome, not welcomes. Anyways, once you do that, you have to go into the index.css and then write H1 font size. It has to be something enormously big, so 100 px. Hopefully that won't be too big. And yes, I was right. 100 pixels is not too big and not too small. And we also have to write transform rotate x something like -50 deg, which stands for degrees. Now you see we have this cool looking welcome. So yes, that's cool and all, but I want this to be centered. So write text align center. It's centered, but it's not fully centered. I want this also to be centered down, to be at the complete center of the screen. So to make up for that, I'm going to write translate y 300 pixels. Now you see it is at the complete center of the screen. Let me increase it a little bit more. Now I'm going to reduce the translate y to only 200 pixels. 150 pixels. Just great. Now that we've got this 3D welcome thing, we also have to change its color to tomato. Oh, and also close this tab, it's useless. Now that this welcome thing's color is tomato, we have to use the before HTML. Oh, we have to use before content welcome Now you see that there are two welcomes with exactly the same style. So we don't want these welcomes to be right next to each other. I want this welcome to be over this welcome. So I'm going to write z index -1 Okay, I've done that, but it still doesn't work. Well, first, I'm going to write position absolute. What position absolute does is basically it just makes it ignore everything. So it's going to ignore this, ignore this, ignore this. It's going to ignore everything on the page. So position absolute makes it so that it can go through anything. But without position absolute, we cannot go through anything. So without position absolute, it can't go through this. It can't even go through this. So I'm going to change its color to tomato, but make it darker. Dark tomato. But you see that this dark color completely overrides the brighter color. We don't want that, so I am going to set its z index to -1. A z index of -1 means it's going to be behind everything on the page. Now you see that it's back to normal. Now that it's back to normal, I want this to be more down. I want the welcome text behind this H1 to be more down. So to do that, right, translate 0px x-axis and 10px in the y-axis. Wow, wow, wow! This is absolutely amazing! We have got a 3D looking effect in a matter of seconds. Anyways, I'm going to move this a bit more down. This is truly just amazing. And this is extremely simple. We only need about 18 lines of code to do all this. But this doesn't really look animated. It's just a still 3D text. Doesn't look interesting. We're not going for those cool 3D effects like it's going to look like it's going to be rotating in 3D. Instead, I'm going to go for a hovering effect using CSS animations. So H1 tag, right? Animation. The name of the animation is going to be hover. I'm also going to write the duration to be 1 second and then infinite. So since the hover animation doesn't exist, it's going to do nothing. So I have to write keyframes at hover. At keyframes hover, which is this hover is our animation name, the one that we mentioned here. At keyframes hover is basically just all the keyframes for the hover animation. 0% is the beginning of the animation. The keyframes go to 0% to 100%. 100% is the full animation. 0% is just the beginning. Anything in between that are different times in the animation. So 0% is the beginning, 50% is half of the animation, 100% is the full animation. So that means you can use a max of 100 keyframes in. You can use a max of 100 keyframes in one CSS animation. So at the beginning of the animation, I'm going to write translate 0px in the x-axis and 0px in the y-axis. And in the second one, it's going to move a little up. So I'm going to write translate 0px in the x-axis and 20px in the y-axis. And for the last one, I'm going to do the same thing as the one above, but it's going to be 0px in the x and y-axis. A very cool floating. I'm going to change its easing to ease it out, which means what ease in out means is that at the beginning of the animation it is going to be slow, and then it's going to gain speed, and so at the end of the animation it's going to slow down again. Now you see that the hover animation looks much more natural. Anyways, I also increased the y-axis a little bit. Now it is much more floatier. But this doesn't look that 3D, it actually looks very unnatural. So I'm going to copy this animation hover into the H1 before. Which you see makes this cool effect. So because of this, I want this to start being or looking 3D. So I'm going to change this to 10px, 10px. So you see, when the animation ends, instead of it just looking like or being normal text, when the animation ends, it's also going to look 3D. Now, this animation is pretty good, but I also want to add a hover effect to it. So for that, write H1 hover color tomato, and then increase its brightness, and then transition 0.5s. Yeah, we've got something working, but not a very cool something working. So I'm going to just as well about copy this, paste it, and change this to something like negative 60 deg, negative 70 deg. You see that when we hover over it, it's going to become more flatter, or you can say it's going to face more upwards. But I think this is too much, so I'm just going to leave it at negative 63 deg. There we go. Not too small that it's not noticeable, and not too big that it completely ruins the effect we're going for. You can tinker around with these values if you want to get different results. Oh, and I'm also going to try writing minus 360 deg. Maybe I should just leave it at minus 63 deg. Anyways, that is it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel, ObaCode. Bye! Okay, so we've got this cool text effect working around, but now it's time to style some of the pages. First, I'm going to style the settings page. So, to style the settings page, in the source folder, click on it and create a new file called settings.html. This settings.html is where the settings page is going to be. Of course, since this is website designing or styling, the settings page is going to do nothing. Now write HTML5 and then then save it. And for the far gear class, wrap it in an A tag. Which has an href of the aforementioned HTML file. Now you see that when we click on the settings, it leads to a blank page. Now that's a good sign, but first we have to make this to look better. So first, I'm going to change this one's background to orange. So to do that, in the index.css, write body background color orange. But this looks very ugly, so instead I'm just going to do it with Tailwind CSS. Class is EG orange 200. And also remove this. Now you see it is a beautiful light orange. And the effect looks very cool on this light orange background. But I also want this to bounce. So to do that, I am also going to write anime bounce. Now this navbar is going to bounce. Now if you don't want it to bounce, then you could remove this. But since I want it to bounce, then I'm just going to put it there. Okay, so maybe this is a bit too animated. So I'm going to switch to the settings page. Go to the gear icon and click on it. It is going to lead you to the settings page, which is the settings.html. I'm also going to add an orange background to it. Anyways, now I'm going to add a button that says dark scene. Now you see that it does nothing. But we're not going to make it do anything since we're going for website styling and designing. We're not trying to make our website responsive. So for the button that says dark theme, link this settings.html to the CSS. Now, if you have basic knowledge of HTML and CSS, you should be able to do that easily. But anyways, the reason why this class wasn't working before is because our index.css file has all of the Tailwind utilities. Our index.css file has all of the Tailwind stylings, so without it, we can't use Tailwind CSS. We could create another CSS file and then copy this to the other CSS file and then link that CSS file instead. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to be doing the styling in one CSS file. Now, when the CSS styles gets very complicated, it is is recommended to split up your stylings into multiple CSS files. Anyways, for the dark sea, I'm going to give this button a class of c.c, a padding of 20 pixels, a border radius of 20 pixels, and a background color of black. Maybe a background color of white instead. That's better. Now I'm going to increase the padding to 30 pixels. A big white button. So I'm going to copy this, paste it right here, and use hover C semicolon hover. Now I'm going to change this padding to 40 pixels. I'm going to change the background color to black. Now you can write RGB000, or you can just write black instead. I'm also going to change the text color to white in this button hover animation. We've got a pretty cool effect going on, but I'm also going to increase the font size to 20 pixels. Now we've got a pretty cool effect, but there's no transition in between the effects. So I'm going to write transition 0.5s. Pretty cool. But now I'm also going to make this have a sort of glow effect by adding a box shadow 0010px RGBA 0,0,0,0.5. I'm going to make this bigger so that the glowing effect can show more. Now if you look closely, you'll see that it has this shadow around it. So anyways, I am also going to add a checkbox that allows for monospace font. Now first, I'm going to wrap everything up in a div. A div that has a class of settings. Now, for now, this does nothing, but later we're going to add some special scenes to this div. So anyways, create a label, monospace, and also add a BR tag to separate these. But anyways, add an input with the type of checkbox. Now, if anyone's used HTML or CSS before, they would know that normally you cannot style checkboxes. Now, if you don't believe me, I'm going to give you proof. Right, dot settings, input, type equals checkbox, padding 20 pixels. But you see that this does nothing because we cannot style the checkbox. So we have to write appearance none. This is going to make the checkbox completely disappear. And this type equals checkbox. Make sure that it's only going to style the inputs in the settings tab that has a type of checkbox. Now with a padding of 20 px, I'm also going to add a background color of brown. Okay, yeah, that looks very ugly, so I'm going to add a background color of cornflower blue instead, which looks much more better. Anyways, I'm also going to give this some roundness by writing border radius 10 pixels. But this checkbox is too small, so I'm going to increase the padding to 40 pixels. A nice big fat checkbox. 34 pixels. Not too big and not too small. Nice. So anyways, you see that when you try to check this checkbox, it does nothing. So you have to do the checked animation manually. Right, it's the same thing except with semicolon checked added. Now when you add this, remove all of these, change the padding to 43 pixels, and change this to green yellow. Now we could call this a checkbox, but I don't really like it, so in the checked add border 10px solid black. That's better. And I'm also going to reduce this padding to 36 pixels. So anyways, I am also going to add a transition 0.5s, which stands for seconds. I'm also going to increase the border radius to 20 pixels. Maybe this is a bit too big. I'm going to reduce the padding to 25 pixels. But this monospace font is a bit under the checkbox. So I'm going to move this label up by using Tailwind CSS, where its class equals relative bottom 6, which moves it up. I'm going to write bottom 3. I'm also going to increase the size of this label by writing text 4XL. I'm going to increase the padding to 29 pixels. Now we've got a beautiful checkbox. Now you can adjust this color if you want to. Now you can make it any color you want. But for this div, I'm also going to give it a class of n6, which just makes everything to be more spaced out. Now, also add an input with a type of search, br, we're going to add 3 brs, and now we are going to style this input with classes using Tailwind CSS. So now give it a border radius rounded to XL. Now you see that it's more rounded out. And also write P5. Now it's more bigger. But anyways, I'm also going to write border blue 600 to give it a blue border. I'm also going to write border 3 . Now, anyways, now we have this input. I am also going to make this gray. I'm also going to make it darker. Now, go to our CSS file and the settings input type equals checkbox. Add a box shadow of inset 00 40px RGBA 0,0,0.5. Let me make the border a bit more smaller. Now you see that we've got this nice effect. Let me change it to 10px. But let me also give this button outline. In .theme write border 3px solid black. A nice black border. Copy this and paste it into theme, hover, and instead of being black, it's going to be white. Now for the input, write text blue 600, which is going to make this text to be blue. And finally, we're going to style this div. Write settings asterisk, which stands for everything. This CSS is going to style everything in the dot settings class. In the dot settings class, right? Animation SQ 1S infinite is in out. And now write at keyframes SQ. So we want everything to have a small animation. So write at keyframes SQ 0% scale 1 50% scale 1.1 0.99 and 100% scale 1 1. Now you see that everything has this squash and stretch animation. So yeah, this squash and stretch animation, maybe it squashes a bit too much. So instead of writing 1.1, I'm going to write 1.99. Now 1.03. You see that when we change this to 1.03, now the squash and stretch is more subtle. Now I'm also going to add a background under all of these. So write dot settings background color gray, border radius 20 pixels, which adds a nice gray background behind all of these. Now reduce the color of the gray. Increase the color of the gray. After increasing the color of the gray, add a box shadow 0050px RGBA 0,0,0.5. And also put insets. Now you see that it looks much more nicer. I'm also going to give it a padding of 10px. Anyways, now we've done with designing the settings. So you see that there's a bit of a problem. If you want to go back to the home page, but then we can't because there's no way to get back to the home page except by clicking the back button. So to fix that, in the settings.html, I'm going to add go to the index.html and then copy this. we're just going to add the nav bar to our settings. Let me reduce this to P3, P10. But anyways, you see that the settings don't show. So I'm going to write absolute relative Now you see, the reason why these settings don't show is because we have to copy this font awesome link into here, save. Now the settings actually show, but now that the settings show, all we can do is re-enter the settings over and over and over again. So I have to remove the ahref from this one and put it in the first one, which is the home page. Ahref equals index.html. /a also class equals I anyways, after that, save it. And now we can go back to the home page. So anyways, that is it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel, ObaCode. Bye!